So I'm going to start setting up for chain piecing, and I'm going to get it ready with sections 1 and section 2 already put together, matched up with each other, and stuck to the paper. So I'm just going to put these aside for now. And I'm going to stack my 2 sections together by putting the section 1 with the wrong side up and the section 2 with the right side up, touching each other so their right sides are together. And I'm just kind of sort of center that on that piece. And then I'm going to place it behind my section 1 so that the raw edges are even with the dotted line next to line 1. And to make sure that matches easily, I can just fold the line 1. I can just fold the template on the line 1 dotted line. I always want to fold, when I'm folding my templates, I always want to be able to read the line 1. I don't want it to be upside down. And I'm going to fold the template down towards me, and my raw edges are going to line up against that. So I take my pieces that I just matched up together, and I make sure that the raw edges are even with that fold. And I want to make sure that the template 1 piece goes a little bit past the edge of the paper. And I'm going to grab them all together like that, and I'm going to put a pin in them to hold them all together so that they're ready to get sewn. And so now when I put it on my machine, I'm just going to sew on the dark line 1 solid line. So I'm going to put that aside, and I'm just going to stack all of them like that. And then I'll just pile each one on top of the other. And then I can sew all my line 1s at the same time. And so that's how I like to start my pattern. And then the rest of the process is the same as all her other patterns and the Judy Niemeyer process. This just gives me a quick head start so that I don't have to do folding and trimming and then placing. I can just get them lined up. They're already lined up with the seam allowance line. And I can kind of see, because I have that going past the edge of the paper, I can kind of see where the dotted line is. And I can see here at the end where it is. And when I put my pin in and I get it started in the machine, I get the needle down on the black line and I take a couple stitches and I can lift this up and I can pivot it so that it's perfectly underneath that dotted line and then hold it in place while I sew. So as I'm matching them up, I come across one of my wedges that had a little notch taken out of it because when we put our little sample pieces on our pattern for reference, it ended up right where the template ended up cutting a notch. So not to worry, because when I lay down my template piece, my paper piece that I'm going to sew it to, I can see that inside these dark lines where section 1 is, I have fabric, so it doesn't matter. I also want to show you that it's good to do it on a flat table, because when you lay down your pieces together like that and you've got them centered, you can actually tell better where that dotted line is, and you can press with your finger and you can feel the edge of the fabric and you know that it's lined up right on the dotted line. And then when you go to put your pin in, you can hold the pattern with the paper with the fabric all together with your hand, and then you can pick up one edge and it doesn't move as you're putting your pin in, and that way the head of your pin is near you and you're going to start sewing up here so you can pull the pin as you go. Just another helpful hint. So I'm getting ready to sew, and I'm going to put my needle in at the beginning of line 1 and then put my foot down, and I'm going to lift up the paper and I'm going to make sure that these raw edges are even with each other and that they're right underneath the dotted line. And then I'm just going to pinch it at the end to hold it in place and start. I want to make sure I have a small stitch so that it'll end up ripping the paper easy at the end. So I go with 1.5, 1.8, something like that. And after I get a few stitches done, I can remove the pin. and I stop at the end of the line. And I don't have to back tack because I have a small stitch. You can see that on some of these lines they end up in the middle of the paper. That's okay, that's just where you end up stopping. I just pull it off a little bit. I don't even cut it away from the machine, and I get my next piece on the pile and do the same thing. I line it up, I get my needle in, I make sure that it hasn't swiveled out of place, that it's in line. And after I do a few stitches, I can pull out my pin, and that's it. That's chain piecing. So I'm happily chain piecing along here. Almost done with the end of my pile. So I just take them off the machine. I keep them in the order that they were in because my next pieces in line are all in the same order as well. So I just snip them and place them on a pile on top of each other. So stick the next one, put it on top. Stick the next one, put it on top. Until I have my pile all set up again. And then I go to the iron, and I'm going to iron them all open. And I'll iron the first one, put it down, iron the second one, put it on top, iron the next one, put it on top. And then they'll all be in the right order again. And then when I go to trim, I take the one off the top, I fold the paper, I trim with my 1/4 ruler, and then place it down. I do the next one, I place it on top of the first, I do the next one, I place it on top of the pile, and then I'm all set to start putting my next section, which would be section 3, on. And they'll be right back in the correct order. If you always keep in mind that you have to work through the pile, place them down, place the next one on top. So I iron them open, and I just place this off to the side, and I take the next one in the pile, I open it. Sometimes it helps to finger press it a little bit so you make sure that you don't have any creases there, that you're completely opened up. And it just goes on top of the last one. On top of the last one. So I have my nicely pressed stack, and I'm going to start trimming them. So I just take the first one off the top of the stack, and I'm going to hold it so that I can read the front of the paper piece, and I can read the thing that says line 1, line 2, line 3. I sewed on line 1, so I'm going to place my template along the dark line 2, the solid line, and I'm going to have to tear a little bit of this away where you can see the stitching went over it. Sometimes it's good to do it before you place the template on there. Just a little pull will do you. And then you place your template, you fold it towards you, you put your 1/4 ruler on the fabric, and you butt it up against the template so that you can see through to the fabric. You don't want to place it on top of your template and cut, because then you'll cut away the seam allowance. So that's what the 1/4 is all about. It butts up right against your template. And then you can cut right along that ruler. And you've given yourself a nice 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I open it up, I place it aside, I take the next one in the pile, and I do the same thing. And I'm gonna trim all of them one at a time, making sure I can read line 2. First I gotta tear away those little bits right there. Just a little bit. Place it on line 2, fold it towards me, and then use my ruler and trim. I put it on top of the pile. That's it. Until I'm all done with this pile. So I finished trimming all of my stack, and the next process is to take the next section and put it on the back. So we're on section 3. So that's the whole process. First you place the fabric, then you sew the fabric, then you press the fabric, and then you trim the fabric. And we're back to step 1. We're going to place the fabric. So the next section is my section 3, and I'm going to make sure that I'm looking at the one that's on the top of the pile, and in this case the one on the top of my section 3 is the right color. So it's going to line up so that the bigger part of the triangle is at the top of the wedge. It goes right there. So I know that when I sew it in, I'm going to put it right sides together, and it gets sewn along here, and I'm going to hold it at the top and the bottom, and I'm going to turn it over so I'm looking at line 2, and I'm going to bring it right to my machine, and I'm going to stitch it, and I'm going to do chain stitching. So each one I piece will stay on the machine, and line 2 kind of ends sort of in the middle of the paper. It doesn't matter, just pull it away from your foot, get your next one, pick the next one off the pile, and make sure it's right sides together, and make sure it's off the paper a little bit. Hold it in place and put it right on your machine on line 2. So we're actually getting 2 steps done at the same time right now. We're placing and then we're sewing. Placing and sewing. Grabbing it, bringing it right to my machine. So when I'm done with the 18 of these, I'm going to bring them over to my iron. I'm going to open them all up, iron them. I'm going to bring them back to my table, go through the pile, trim them all, and then I'm on to section 4, which is another one of those rectangular pieces for the spikes. And you do the same thing. You're going to line up the raw edges with the edge that you just cut, and then you're going to pick it up, put it over to your machine, and you're going to stitch on line 3. So I finished another stack, I pressed them all open. It's time to go to the next line. So I can see I sewed line 1, I sewed line 2, so now I'm going to place my template on line 3. There's a little bit of stitching that has to come loose before I fold my template over, so I'm just going to lift up the paper, give it a little pull, and then I'm able to put my template on line 3. Fold the paper back. Put my add a quarter ruler on there. And trim. And I'm going to go through the stack again on line 3. And then I will be done with another set of steps. Place, sew, press, trim. So here they are, all trimmed, ready to go. We're going to place. So I'm going to just take the top one off the stack. And now I'm just going to start piecing them. So I'm going to turn it over so I can see the side that I'm piecing to. And I'm going to pull the first rectangle off the pile that matches. Oops, I grabbed 2. And then I'm going to line it up on the pattern piece so that the raw edges are even and they're right sides together. And I want to make sure that the rectangle will fall down just past this point at the bottom of the pattern. It doesn't matter so much at the top of the curve, because the piece we're covering is down in here. So it's going to fall past, and I'm just going to turn it over, bring it over to my machine, and stitch on line 3. And I will do this to all of them again. And I'm just going to chain piece them once more. Top one on the pile, take the thing off, match it so that it hangs past the point, flip it, and sew on line 3. So it's always the same. Place it, sew it, press it, trim it. So I have my stack. I sewed them all, I pressed them open, then I trimmed them all by folding on line 4. I pulled a little bit away, I folded on line 4, used my add a quarter ruler, trimmed away the excess on all of them. So now it's time, after trim, to place our next piece, which is section 5. Right here, we're working on filling up section 5. And you're going to place it right sides together with the raw edges even along the seam that you just trimmed, and hold it and put it right up on the machine. This one kind of stops in the middle of the paper, that's okay. And so we're just going to go through them all again. It's all the same steps over and over again. And even though I'm repeating myself, I'm going to just tell you, you place it, you sew it, you press it, and you trim it.